just a little introduction. I'll get us into the swing of it. But
Good.
Hello and welcome to the Construction Sport Podcast. Very professional as ever. And today I have a supporter of Construction Sport, a member of Construction Sports 100 Club, and good friend, I'd imagine we are now, which we've come a long way over a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Mr. Jack Rumbol of Havio. How are you, Jack?
I'm brilliant. Good? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking on the M25 to get to us.
Yes.
Commitment.
It's all going to be worth it.
Have you paid your dart charge?
No.
I forgot last week. Now I think about it, I've actually forgot last week again. Don't forget.
No.
The how's life?
Life is
how's
good.
The New Year, start of it?
New Year's good. Busy. Really busy. Yeah. So I don't know what the general headwinds are that everyone else is experiencing, but for us, it's looking good. We've got a good order book.
Yeah.
Things are looking on the up. Last year was a challenging year, but it was still steady. It doesn't feel like anyone's pulling up any trees. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's doing more for less.
Yeah. Well, I judged it on golf days. I noticed there wasn't as many golf days last year as the years before.
I've given up the golf.
Yeah. That's a lot of
complete
people.
shite. I've given up.
I thought it was just me not getting invited as much, but then I spoke to a lot of people. They said, no, there's definitely not been actually. I think it's that side of people going, let's just rein it in a little bit throughout the year.
Yeah, we'll see.
Little time.
Let's see what this year brings.
And what is it Havio does? I know all about it, but tell our audience.
For our sins, we are a health and safety consultancy. Yeah, so primarily targeting the construction industry. Around 85% of our business is construction.
Yep.
Working with, they tend to be tier 2, 3, 4 main contractors. That's our niche. Either a contractor who hasn't got their own internal resource and they want us to be that kind of health and safety manager operating for them, which works quite well at the moment, especially with the increased sort of NI costs and all that kind of stuff. People are cutting costs from their internal teams, so they come to us. Or supporting existing teams, sort of safety teams within businesses and helping them do a lot of the tasks that they don't want to do, going out on site, doing audits, inspections, that kind of stuff. But so health and safety, yeah.
Have you seen a rise in that companies going outside?
Say that again, sorry?
Have you seen a rise in people going outside to get health and safety consultancy in?
It's definitely so. Do you know what? It's so dependent upon the business because the business has different pulls and drivers. So you've got some that are staunch in their belief that internal is the way to go. Yeah. And they'll pay over the odds for that. They could do it cheaper, or they could do it with more efficiencies if they went for the consultancy, although it has its drawbacks. And then you have the ones that are more flexible with it, that look at it and go, okay, well, if we want to get our own internal health and safety manager, a sort of an average one's going to cost us 65, 70 grand a year. Yep. And then they can look at ours and say, okay, well, sorry, with that 75 grand a year, right, the costs are going to be to get that person in the door, 15% recruitment fee, probably more if you go to Jeff. And
you'll get the right person. That's the thing.
And then all the other costs, you could be looking at upwards of 100, 120 grand for that right person, if it's the right person.
If being the word.
If being the word, and then they don't have all these sort of skill sets. You're going to get somebody who's maybe not strategic or all that other stuff. So with us, you get, I'm not saying we're perfect, but you get it for cheaper. You don't get us on site all of the time for you. But there's a lot of wasted time anyway. There's a lot of inefficiencies, I feel, especially in safety, that you can get consultancies involved for. We're not for everyone. There's consultancy, the model does not work for every single company. And we're quite open about it when we go and speak to people. Yeah. If I go and speak to someone and I'm like, right, from what you're telling me, I don't think we're the right people, either culturally or that you should be going in-house. Yeah. I'll say it because it's
so important, to be honest, at that
it's
stage,
it's not worth pursuing it. It's like, we will fit the mold for some people and for others we're not. Back in the day when I took this business, when I say back in the day, even a year ago, we took on anything and everything. I call it the garage mentality. I started the business in the garage. And didn't say no to anything. You just wanted every bit of money that was coming through the door. Didn't really have to look too much at the profit margins because it was only my time. Yep. As you grow the business and you're paying out lots of money for overheads on people, you start realizing you're doing work and you're going, I'm actually paying money to do some of this work. I'm like, that's lunacy, Yep. And it's interesting, like, as I think about it now, like, obviously I'm on the hamster wheel now and I've got a business that's probably, we've got 15 people at the moment. It's going to be upwards of 20. So there's a lot of mouths to feed. And if you was to ask me now, if I started all over again, would I go and do what I've done? I might think carefully about it because, managing people is just the hardest thing in the world. And getting the right people in the business, people who can do it the way that you want it to be done, it's no mean feat, and it does. You can see the grey hairs on me. It causes a lot of stress. So I think if I had my time again, I think I'd think carefully about whether or not it's the way forward.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it sounds perfect. Just getting more and more people involved, more and more business, more like you say. But every person comes with,
and then you need to build the
structure. The wrong word.
Then you need to build the structures around it, and you need to have people managing people, and so it's dead costs, and then it's like, it's just not as it's not as simple as I think a lot of people feel like it's quite an easy way to earn money.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good. There's lots of people in safety, sort of one man, one woman operators going around doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good at what you do and you're prepared to put in the hours, you can earn.
Yeah.
You can probably earn 120, 150 grand if you're cute.
Yep.
Which is quite good. But you're going to be on call all the time, and you go on holiday, and you're going to suffer for it. So yeah. So it depends how much you want to be on the hamster wheel with it.
Yeah. Oh, super. Do you find people come to you when something goes wrong, or they realise, shit, we want to do this in house, but we don't actually?
Yeah, some people. So we tend to get a lot of business when people are looking. Now we tend, because of our marketing, we're seen as a provider that can help people really actually sort of use health and safety as a launch pad.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially they want to see it for a cultural improvement. So they want to get their staff to be more, the morale to be higher, their productivity to be higher, efficiencies, this kind of stuff. So more and more people are starting to see health and safety that's not just this siloed subject.
Yep.
It's sort of what you do as a business across the board. So it's starting to turn. So you're starting to see the clients we go after are the people that have got that attitude where they want to use it as a force for good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not stupid enough to think that, we go to meetings with people. One of the first things you speak to a director of the business, what you're trying to achieve. They'll say, we don't want to hurt anyone. That's a given. Followed quickly by, I don't want to end up in a cell.
Yeah.
So there's different drivers. And I've been involved with, I won't be able to say names and things like that, but some pretty serious incidents that have gone and caused people, tags around the ankles, 500 grand fines, and the HSE are really finding their teeth with regards to sentences. Big time. Like back when I started, you could kill someone, you could seriously injure someone and get a slap on the wrist and a fine, which in the grand scheme of things didn't even register on the Richter scale.
Yeah.
So then them attitudes and behaviours of, well, we'll just wait. You get some certain people in the industry going, well, let's not fucking invest the money. Let's wait and see. If something happens, it happens. It's part and parcel of the job. Now, and rightly so, the sentencing guidelines. I think last year I put a blog out about it recently. I think the biggest fine was 4.8 million. I think it was last year. To a big beast.
Yeah.
But you were getting some big major construction companies. I think there was one about 2 million. One about 900 grand.
And that's a dent on anyone's
pocket. That's a dent, and you can't insure against it.
Yeah.
Criminal liability you can't insure against.
Yeah.
So you're suffering them costs and having to absorb them. Now the big boys can do it. Yeah. You take a tier 3 contractor who's on the wire.
Yep.
Well, a lot of them are going to be folding and rising from the ashes again as they do.
Yeah, it's savage, isn't it? You've seen a lot of off the back of like the Grenfell changes in things.
Oh,
it's obviously a little
huge,
bit ahead.
but we've stayed out the way of. So Grenfell brought about the Building Safety Act.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm letting other people deal with that, because from a business perspective, it is an absolute shitstorm to find your way through. There's some people that have basically set themselves up as building safety experts, consultancies that have thought, fair play to them, they've seen the avenue.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure they're seeing the liability aspect of it yet, because I don't think anything's been tested. But they've got a free run of it at the moment, because people can't get the building safety case reports and everything else. They can't get them done, so they have to use these people.
Yeah. It's still going on, isn't it? Very much so.
Oh God,
a lot of it.
Yeah, it's massive. There's
the inquiry come out, wasn't it?
The inquiry came out that. Oh, don't get me started on inquiries. we have inquiries for every single thing that goes wrong in the world at the moment in the UK.
Yeah.
And do they ever actually lead to anything? They spend millions and millions and 2-3 years worth of time. Mm-hmm. You've only got to see the COVID inquiry, Grenfell inquiry, all of these inquiries. What was it? The blood scandal. There was a post office one. What actually really changes? Hardly anything, because we've got I'm getting political now, but we're too short-termism in terms of how we view things.
Yeah.
So there's no appetite for it, and there's no bloody money left for a lot of these things that need to change.
Again, I suppose the mental health subject we're going to come on to anyway, but same as that, isn't it? So you keep on just shouting about it and just talking about it, and so we put put more money into research and all that, but what is actually going to change, isn't it? Really?
And I think everyone just naturally feels like you throw money at something, it's going to lead to better results.
Yeah.
You've got to and I know this is multifaceted, but you just look at the money in the last 20 years that's been thrown at the NHS.
Yeah.
And yet we're in the situation where we've got waiting times, all that kind of stuff, which every single data metric is worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
But they're throwing more money at it. It's just a bottomless pit. You just have to keep filling it up, and it's not making it better.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And I'm not qualified enough to say the reasons why on all these different things. I'm just saying that's why I always say, bringing it back to health and safety, when I go and see clients, I was like, okay, what are you trying to achieve from this?
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like just by engaging us as a consultancy, you're going to get to this sort of, the holy grail? I was like, it needs buy-in. It needs buy-in from you as the leaders. You're the most important people in the business because everything starts from you.
Yep.
But a lot of people just want to pay lip service to it, and they're quite happy to pay the money as long as it's sort of like, and I'm not stupid enough, right? As a consultancy, I know people pay me money as Havio because if the shit and the fan collide and there's a death on site or there's a serious injury, they're going to come up and say, well, hang about, we've got an independent health and safety advisor and here's all their stuff.
You got to keep yourself squeaky then.
So we have to,
more so than an in-house firm.
We do have to keep ourselves squeaky clean, but at the same time, I want to allow my guys and girls in the team to sort of operate in a commercially savvy way. So it's like you go to see a client and you're sort of seeing something that you don't feel you're quite happy with in terms of what you're doing. And we all know you can over-engineer your solutions, just like the structural engineers can over-engineer their solutions and everything else.
Yeah.
So like health and safety people naturally are risk averse, right?
Yeah.
Then they're worried about covering their backsides. So what they'll tell the client is, well, you need to go for this solution. When in fact, they don't need to go for that solution. They could actually go for a lesser solution.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll get onto a subject after about, CSCS cards. It's like you get health and safety people going, well, you have to enforce them. No, you don't. You don't have to enforce them. What you have to make sure is that people on site are competent and have got a basic level of health and safety awareness.
Yep.
And a CSCS card is a very easy, quick way of being able to demonstrate that. But you don't have to do it that way. They can do a test at the end of their induction to say that they've gone through a 10-point questions, and if they've answered 8 out of 10 right.
Do you think that's where we are going with the industry? We're depending too much on CSCS being the holy grail of qualified construction.
I think we're relying too much, not just on CSCS, we're relying too much on industry bodies and accreditation schemes, which are brilliantly marketed and make a lot of money for the people who are in control of them. Yeah. And everyone just has to kowtow to them because the tier one contractors or the clients will say you have to have it. It's bollocks.
Yeah, it is.
Frankly,
yeah.
It's gone so far one way. The SSIP safety schemes in procurement scheme, like which Chas, Safe Contractor, Achilles, SMAS, they're all members of it, right? Yeah. So that's under an umbrella of SSIP. And you're only ever meant to have one. If you have one, you've jumped through the hoops with an external auditor, and that's it. Yep. But what have you got? You've got one tier one contractor says, we want Achilles. You've got another one says, we want construction line.
Yep.
And you'll get another one say they want something else.
Yeah.
So then everyone has to go and get every other one.
And it costs fortunes to get
it costs
through it,
fortunes, and then people want to say, then people come to us and they say, can you do our accreditation for us? And I'm saying, no, because it don't make me any money. It's a complete admin exercise. And if you want to pay my hourly rate to do admin, I think there's probably a better way for you to do it, but people still want to pay you for it, and they can't understand when I turn around and go, it's not what we want to be doing. It's not what we've trained to do. But that accreditation scheme stuff, everything just seems to be accreditations, cards.
I'm fully qualified now. I've got a really shiny card come through the other day.
What colour? What colour?
Green. I'm a
okay.
labourer. Yep. Got a green labourer's card. That's what I qualify for nowadays. Yeah, I didn't come out of school or anything. I've never done an apprenticeship. I've never done any MVQs over the one. I've done my 5-day SMSTS. I've done mental health, first aid at work, emergency first aid at work, triple STS, SMSTS. I've done the refreshers multiple times. Yeah. But none of those equate to the MVQ what you need to get a card.
You're a labourer.
Yeah, so I'm a labourer. So, that's where we are now. So it's unbelievable, isn't it? But where is and I think she's mentioned this, I think it's a guy called James Allen. There is a guy called James Allen on LinkedIn. Yep. He's doing a lot of work before it.
I've seen,
it's interesting, isn't it? Have you met him?
I haven't met him in person. No, I've conversed with him online.
Yeah.
And he's obviously very hot on the CSCS card and about how it came about and competency and all that kind of stuff.
I have to try and get him on to come and explain.
I think I would, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. But he was looking as well, and I think it was like something like a knee-jerk reaction to now off of Grenfell again to
Yeah.
show that everyone's qualified in the right way. Now they've got this CSCS MVQ thing, and that's why this has now come
But
about.
that's great. But it's great, right? You can show people have got the technical aspects, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what drives people and behaviour
Yeah.
has got nothing to do with what they learn about in the classroom or the NVQs and whatever. So, and the Building Safety Act actually explicitly mentions this about behaviours, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can't. How do you judge?
Yeah.
But the right behaviour versus the wrong behaviour? We're all very quick, black and white.
Yeah.
What's right and what's wrong? Who's saying what's right and what's
the
wrong?
behaviour of these powers that be or putting these restrictions in place.
Yeah.
Is that bad behaviour?
So it's and this is the danger where some of these well-intentioned schemes,
Yeah.
I don't believe people think about critically enough.
No.
And we've got echo
work.
chambers, and anyone who challenges, so take for instance James,
Yeah.
he'll be castigated online. But
Yeah.
the CSCS will be on, they'll be on to him. They'll be trying to get in touch to see why he's saying what he's saying, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
How it actually goes. You say, cascading against people and what would the world bring? But it's going to be interesting to see, how that goes. Are you, with the health and safety, where did you start off before Havio was there then?
I came out, so the story goes, I came out of school at 18, and that was in 2005. The grey hair belies my age is only 37. Came out of school. My dad was in waste haulage, and kind of, in his words, the fun had gone out of it. Yeah. People like us. And he just, the red tape and the regulations were starting to already bite. You couldn't earn the money you used to earn in the industry. Yeah. Couldn't have the fun, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, look, go and get a job. I didn't want to go to university. Yeah. I knew instinctively that I'd always earned money from the age of 9. I'd been made to work, which that might sound a little bit child labouring, but my mum and dad were quite successful, self-made. They were very clear on us that they weren't ever going to give me pocket money. If I wanted to earn money, I had to earn it. So I had, just started off with a news shop around, and then it got to about 11, and I think I went and got a paper round at the news agent, which I was meant to be 14 for. Yeah. But so started that, and soon I had 3 paper rounds. And then by the age of 13, 14, I think I had a chemist job in the evening. So I had 4 jobs, and I was earning probably 100 quid a week. So, which was pretty good at that age, and spunking it all on. I think I was into Hackett and Moschino jeans and Gucci loafers and all this shite at that age. Yeah. And then, so I've always wanted to earn money, and I always knew that I was seeing all my mates. School was pushing you in this bloody UCAS points. Yeah. Go to university and study shite you don't want to learn about. Yeah. And I was like, nah, I'm going to go out and earn money. So I was already labouring from the age of 15 on sort of residential projects around my way, pulling in more money. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to do something around this, but didn't know what. Then my dad came home one day and he was like, fuck me, we've just had, on the demo side that he looked at, he's like, we've had someone coming round charging £300 an inspection on this health and safety thing. He's like, you should get into that. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know anything about it, but I'll have a look. And then it basically spawned from there. And then an insurance broker that insured a friend of his business basically said, look, get him to come out of school, come in and see us. And we've got a health and safety division, and we've got an insurance brokerage division, and you can have a look at both. So everyone's obviously thinking I'm going to go into the insurance brokerage stuff because it was a bit more easy, going out on the piss up every lunchtime and all that. But I actually looked at the health and safety stuff. I was like, right, it's a bit embarrassing because everyone takes the piss out of it, And I was like, it wasn't really what I dreamt of. Yep. But I was like, I think there's something to be had here. And then the company, they were called Riverborn Group. They were fucking brilliant. They put me through all of the training you could ever think about. Yeah. And for some reason, and I think it was a family connection, the people who owned it were very accommodating towards me. And I think they must have put 20, 25 grand into my education. Yeah. Stayed away from home for 15 weeks, not
university money, that.
Basically, yeah. So I think I basically had the NEBOSH general I had by the time I was 19. By the time I was 20, and
and that takes some doing.
Yeah. And I didn't. Yeah. And by the age of 20, I had the NEBOSH diploma, which I don't think anyone in the country had it. What I didn't realise at the time was that most people did it over 4 years, and I did it over a year, and the 3 exams consecutively, 3 3-hour exams, one day after the other over 3 days. Yep. but I've got a photographic memory. So I've always been brilliant at tests. So I didn't have any of the experience and didn't have, probably much of a clue what I was writing, but I had a photographic memory that I could remember all the stuff I was studying.
Yeah.
So at the age of 20, got the NEBOSH diploma. So I had pretty much all of the tickets, qualifications, but not much of the experience. But the company basically, and it was good, they put me outside of my comfort zone, which I've always done.
Yeah.
But they put me in some situations I probably shouldn't have been in. But I was advising construction projects at the age of 20.
Yeah.
And, obviously having that backwards and forwards of people thinking I didn't know what I was talking about, that he's just a young buck that is coming in not knowing. Yeah. So I was having and I don't love confrontation. People are sometimes surprised about that, but it just gave me, it was the school of hard knocks. I was having arguments with managers, site teams, having all that kind of stuff.
Because you will be a terrain of abuse.
Yeah,
and safety.
Yeah, and it was.
Reputation.
So it was both that, and it was my age.
And it was just coming in, I suppose.
Yeah,
well, it's fresh.
Yeah, and it was my age. So it was like, right, and I've always looked older, so that got me away. That got me by a little bit. But anyway, by the age of 21, it had sort of run its course at Riverbourne, and then I was thinking about what am I going to go and do next. I was actually thinking about retraining as a lawyer to go and do like health and safety law.
Yeah.
Because I thought that might be more sort of akin to. I didn't see myself health and safety being my career. I don't think many people go into their lives thinking I'm going to go into health and safety. It's not exactly the career path, although that's starting to change. People are seeing more of a vocation now. And then basically 21, I had the owner of the business wanted out. I saw an opportunity in terms of buying out the book of business from the insurance broker. Mm-hmm. And essentially, me and my business partner, my then business partner, he was my boss, put an offer to the MD of the company. He accepted it, and then we went out on our own. So we went in 50-50, and then just grew the business from the two of us. But we were in 2009, right? So 2009 was height of the financial crisis. Yeah. So our business was more skewed towards the built environment. So more like offices, leisure, workplacey kind of environments. There was some construction, but it was on its knees. But then what happened is it started to release out come sort of 2011, and it really started to motor from sort of 2011 onwards. Mm-hmm. And then we caught the crest of a wave, and it just sort of all opened up in front of us. So there weren't any great strategy behind it. Yeah. But there was just a lot of hard work and, just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
So especially 2009, I remember it because it was the first time I left my first job in 2008 doing window fixing and glazing because that dried up. Uh-huh. I remember watching TV. You probably remember as well, seeing was it Merrill Lynch? Was it
Lehman Brothers with all the boxes out of Canary Wharf?
Was it Merrill something, wasn't it?
Merrill Lynch is one, yeah.
Yeah, Merrill Lynch is one, wasn't it? One of the companies that went bust or whatever. I remember, seeing them coming out of the boxes in their arms outside Canary Wharf, wasn't it? Yeah. I remember seeing it so vividly, that. And it wasn't until years later something that was that recession. And everyone goes, it was tough then. And I was like, really? And then I put two and two together. I was like, oh, that's when my first job finished. Yeah. And then you're at a stage now, I suppose, especially with the business, is once you come out of that, touch wood, everything can only get better.
Yeah, I think
you're at a low there, right?
Yeah, I say this a lot anyway, but I think the way the world is now, I think these shocks are just kind of baked in. Yeah. Because we're living in like really, really volatile times. Yep. And if you look at it from 2008, we had the financial crisis. Then we had, what did we have? Brexit 2016. I'm sure there's other stuff in between, but 2016. Then we had COVID 2020. Then you had all the Ukraine-Russia war and then everything else from it. It's just a complete shitstorm, to be fair. And unfortunately, I don't see that that's going to stop anytime soon. It's
become, and I've said this a few times, might have said it on the podcast, or just in the last 5 years, so divisive, the world, isn't it? You're black and white. It's always good to have things black and white, you're not in the middle, but you're not allowed to be in the middle of anything now. I always say Brexit was you're in or you're out, and that is you're right or wrong. COVID jab, if you have it, you're wrong or right. Yeah. And literally, whether you go outside, wrong or right, even now, Ukraine, Russia, that seems...
It's just that the world is polarised, and I think that's made like really, really largely in part to social media. Yeah. They drive polarisation. Yeah. And then what you're having is and this will probably get me in trouble. You've got you've basically what I see is that you've got lots of like the art of disagreeing agreeably has gone. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and I have this argument quite often with people who are younger in age than me. It's like they get, and I'm not saying everyone because there's plenty of older people who do it as well, but it's like why can't we have different views because, you know, my life and my life experiences and my traumas and what I've came into this world with has made me who I am, good, bad, and indifferent. And equally, you'll have had the same. No one's going to be the same. And it's like, why can't we just have different worldviews without saying to each other and like going hell-bent on that I'm right, you're wrong, because they don't agree with my life's viewpoint. So, you know, it's like at the moment, anyone, you know, and I wouldn't say I'm right or left on the political spectrum. I'd say I'm pretty centre down the line. But at the moment, we're recording this the day after the US inauguration.
Anything can happen now.
But you've got people who, you know, so if you've got people who support, you've got Republicans, not all Republicans support Trump, but let's just say, you know, they're sort of the Trump thing, or you've got the Democrats. Well, the people on the left think that anyone on the right is a fascist or a racist, right? And the people on the right think that anyone who's a Democrat is woke and all the rest of it. And it's like, well, who's to say one's right, one's wrong? Why can't they just have different strands that, you know, might resonate or not? And I think that's the big thing. But social media is driving, and AI is then going to do the same. It's driving people to choose a camp. So now that Musk is, you know, judge, chief, and executioner because he owns the biggest media platform in the world, you know, he's pushing a narrative which is going to be more rightward leaning because that's how he sees the world. So then Twitter or X or whatever is going to see things more in that. And then the danger is with AI, it's like, who's teaching the algorithms? Because if it starts to go more right wing, then you start taking people with you. And there's a big thing at the moment, which is there's a lot more young males that are seeing the world in a more rightward leaning way. And it's like, why is that? And they're saying, well, what's happening is the algorithms are playing to them and showing them more rightward leaning stuff. I
heard about this, and they're saying there's a lot in common between the youngsters coming up now, the males, as there was with 70, 80-year-old generation. The older generation said this is what it is. And there was I can't remember the comparison. I'll be wasting the story, but I'll do some research. But it was saying that this generation are very similar to that. And you think, wow, that's interesting.
It is. You just can't. But I just wish that one of the hopes that I have for the world and for society in general is that we can just start to understand each other's differences and have conversations and disagree with each other. In some cases, disagree with each other quite strongly. And at the end of the day, shake hands and say that was a good debate. What's wrong with that?
For our sins, me and my wife watched a little bit of Big Brother. We didn't follow it all through, but in a couple of weeks of following it. And there was a lady on there who got quite, well, I think they become a bit of a couple. They might have been a couple after. And she was like, it's really against me. Like, I'm not worried. I'm worried about going outside because as me and my family, we're so pro-Labour and all this, and he's obviously a conservative and all this. And I was like, people actually basing their relationships on this stuff. And it was like, that is so strange. I was like, I went up to Leeds last year, UK Reef, and I think that evening we was messing around and someone called me a Tory wanker just because I was from down south and I'm a ginator. And I was like, you might have got the second part. the second part might have been right. I was like, I can't even vote to vote last year. I'm not even registered properly to vote. So I was like, I'm not interested in any of it. I know there's a way that we should even put the vote in as a right to do it. And we should do it. But I'm like, I can't believe, and you can see that up north. You could see that kind of the focus on that, especially I think when you go to Liverpool and that kind of stuff as well, wasn't it? There's a real, it's
always been I think it's always been tribal. I mean, I love politics. I'm fascinated. I love it, and I love hearing different viewpoints. But I just think that as human beings, I think we're not very evolved. We're evolved, right? But we haven't really evolved too much in the last 2,000 years. Our brains are pretty much the same that they were 2,000 years ago. But you look at the exterior world, and it's fucking changed beyond all recognition. But we're all and it kind of links into what we'll probably talk about later in the whole mental health thing. But I think there's massive elements of if we understand people at a deeper level, what drives people, and that's what I'm interested in. What really. And
on that, to test us as well, because I think that's probably one of the reasons it will be. Well, I respect yourself, Jack.
Yes.
It'll suck up there before we go to war.
Yeah.
No, but you said to me, and you've said a few times, Steve, I think you should look at this a little bit differently or a different approach in that. And I find that brilliant because I can go off on one. I get that. And you've rung me up, messaged me, just want to touch base on something. And full credit and thank you for all that. And the one I really liked, and I think off the back of it, you probably see what's coming now, but when I said to you, so not too sure, RIDDORS, the RIDDOR situation, wasn't it? And I kind of really thought it, and then you kind of, not so much against it, but he was like, I just don't think it will work. And I was like, since that conversation we've had, it led me on to go, brilliant. This is challenging. That kind of challenging people a little bit with this.
That challenging aspect. I mean, I'm a bit of a pain in the arse. I see the world. I now understand that I see things quite differently than maybe the status quo is one way of looking at it. And I look at my personality profile, I suppose, is someone that I try and have what's called like a scientist approach to stuff, which is to look at all aspects of the argument and to not try and, so that, I'm not trying to influence someone to have my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at all aspects to it, which is, if you look at it in a politician scenario, politicians are trying to have an argument to influence people to believe what they're saying, right? Well, that's not my approach. I just have my opinion, and not saying if that convinces someone, brilliant, whatever. But a scientist approach is to look at all of the data and look holistically around the issue and start to look at and prove why your idea might be wrong.
I think the science is a strong source, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not always right. There's loads of stuff through intuition and everything else that doesn't, science is lagging in certain aspects, but they are very good at actually liking if they get proved wrong. So that's how I look at it. And then when you said about the RIDDOR idea, I was like, yeah, I can see why you would think that by doing that, it's going to lead you to that solution that you're hoping, because we all want the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You want the number down. I don't think there's anyone in the industry who wants the number to keep rising. But I think where where the industry is at the moment, and I'm still not hearing too much about in the way of what do we actually do about it? Because I don't think anyone genuinely knows.
No.
Because there's people far more intelligent than I who are doing all the studies, and they don't know. And that's when I thought about RIDDORS. I was like, I don't think it's going to give you the result that you're hoping to achieve from this, because I don't see that it helps really from the health and safety standpoint either. In terms of, calculating how many people are lost time incidents. It relies on data that is inaccurate because people don't provide the real data for it.
I fully get that. And that's what I've probably learned over the last few years. That information and the research and statistics, anything can be made to look the way you want it to look, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Decent marketing team with some decent stats, and suddenly
you can bend anything into your way. To prove if you've got a point to prove, right? I can guarantee you, you'll find some data if you do it well enough. If you're really clever, you'll go and get a university to back it, right? And then you'll wrap it up in a nice marketing piece and say we've done this white paper and we've done this research with X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what the lobbyists do. With all these lobbyists that are telling you that drinking Coke and all these sugary drinks are fine for you. Well, it's a load of bollocks. It's terrible for you, right? Yeah. But the lobbyists are paying really, really high fees to try and push through the agendas that they want.
Yeah.
And this is it. I see life in smoke and mirrors, right? I do not believe anything verbatim what I'm told by anyone. Yeah. And it's not to say I'm cynical. I just, if I get fed some narrative online, fed some narrative from the news, whatever, I see a lot of people just nod their heads and go, right, well, that's right. I don't. I'm like, let that come into my head. Let that come into my heart. Do I think that resonates with me? Yes or no? And that's just how I live my life. Yeah. And, if it sends a signal to me that I shut my eyes and there's a warning signal, I'll go into that intuition. Yeah. That's just how I live my life.
Yeah.
But I just see far too many people, and I understand why, because it's set up for failure, is that they just get fed narratives by people who have got a vested interest or want something out of them or want to sell something to them. Yeah. It's the biggest thing in the sales industry. We're trying to sell people a dream that,
God, you see that.
You see it everywhere.
Yeah. Like I said, too much in the detail. Feed the storm what happened last year, but that was all pushing a narrative to ultimately sell. And you just think, that is 100% been our downfall, really. That's the reason why we've probably struggled by it the last few years with this, is because we've been too passionate and not too commercially headed.
But then you stay authentic to yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah,
and it's like, well, would you prefer to cat out to people, right, and then have to feed into what their narrative wants you to be? And this is always the thing with taking advertising from people and everything else. It's like if Construction Sport Podcast suddenly gets sponsored by what's the Better Health? Better Help? What's the one that's sponsoring all the podcasts at the moment? The mental health, Better Help, the podcast, all this kind of stuff. Then you'll have to start feeding into what they want you to say, and they'll start censoring you about what you can say because they don't want their brand attached to it. Yeah. Right. Well, you've got a decision.
You're controlled.
You're controlled. You've got a decision. Yeah. And it's like that's why I've got a lot of respect for people who sort of shy away from that and say, okay, well, I'm not going to maybe have this as a corporate machine. I'm going to have this as an authentic thing to me. I'll find donors, sponsors that are going to be happy for me to talk my mind.
Yeah.
And do it that way. I think what you're doing is the right way about it.
And just saying that it's your way you're running your business, obviously, because you're telling some companies, we don't want to work with you. That your authenticity is how you can work with companies. Some it just doesn't fit with some. If
you don't have authenticity in life, I don't think you've got anything. I genuinely think it's the most important value, personally. It's easy to reel out, but authenticity, integrity, honesty, they're kind of, for me, the three most important things that are there. Because if you don't have that, I don't know. I just don't. Well, for me, I just don't.
Yeah.
Well, really
is that? I suppose it always comes down to, like I say, and I get that probably why we're in a position where we are, where we're able to be a bit louder because we're not controlled. But that's probably why mental health and construction hasn't gone anywhere, isn't it? In terms of
everyone's too worried.
Yeah.
Everyone's too worried about saying the wrong thing. Everyone's too. If they're in a big contractor or a big, main contractor, whatever, people aren't wanting to stick their head above the parapet. But because of obviously the PR aspect of it. And you know what? I do understand it. I understand why the companies don't want to do it. I really genuinely do. I just think it will take a brave company. But the problem is those companies have all got stakeholders and shareholders involved, right? And they're ultimately you are beholden to your shareholders. So if you do something that suddenly tanks your share price, means you can't pay a dividend to your shareholders, right? The CEO of that company will no longer be the CEO of that company. Yeah. They'll be removed. So it's no different to any other businesses.
You're owned.
You are owned, and and I think that's it. And that's why I've always preferred to be involved at kind of the cut and thrust, and I've always known I'm never going to be a corporate beast or animal that's going to be in. I would last 2 minutes.
You stay in your lane.
I will stay in my lane. I will stay in my lane. That fateful phrase. But I will stay in my lane because and it's fine. There's space for everyone, but. When you see all this claptrap online, people posting how much they care for people or how great their safety record is. We've got a gold award from ROSPA. And then I go on some of the sites and I think, fuck me. Yeah. How the fuck did you ever get that?
That email I read you earlier in comparison to what you see online.
But it's true. And so it's all window dressing bollocks. Yeah. And this is where I would prefer, and this is what I try and do with Havio's marketing. And of course, we're trying to market ourselves and show ourselves in a light. But I'm always just trying to be absolutely authentic and honest and say, do you know what? Right, we've got a role that's open. Right, I posted one the other day. It was about a role that we've got, a senior consultancy role, and I was like, please do not send me the usual CV that tells me you're a dynamic, hardworking, driven individual that can work in a team but is equally happy working on their own.
Have you read my CV?
Yeah, everyone's CV. What I would prefer, and I know this is just me, what I would prefer, but what I'd prefer is you to say, do you know what? I'm probably not the ideal candidate for you. But what I have got is bags of potential, energy that's going to get me out of bed in the morning, and I'll give my all for you. But these are some of the drawbacks. These are some of the areas that I'm strong in. These are some of the areas I'm weak in. I would interview that person within an instant.
Yep. And that could be sent in video format.
A video format. Yeah.
Anyway.
But everything you get is just this standard approach that's always been done.
Yeah.
Who's to say, why does it have to be done like that anymore?
Yeah. Because it is old-fashioned, isn't it?
It's old-fashioned. No one's moved at the time. Some people have. But why do people just do the same thing that everyone does? Yeah. I don't understand why people don't shake it up.
Little letter on Microsoft Word, Times New Roman.
Exactly.
We're away.
That's it. But that's it. And it's like, and you get it. You go to the interview stage, and I've done enough of these interviews in my time, and you go to them, and you're like, God, it doesn't stack up. There's no. Yeah. It's like okay. I know I've probably interviewed 400 or 500 people, and like some of the best CVs look on paper, you're like, God, that person, that is an absolute nailed on. You speak to them and you're like, geez, I wouldn't, just not right for me.
I've never really been in. I've had 1 or 2 interviews maybe in my life, and even the boys didn't even come through that. They come through a rugby WhatsApp group because he had done a GCSE video and sent me his video of him singing in French.
Okay.
So that was definitely downgraded him straight away. It was that video for it. He said, "Oh, if he can do that, you can do something for me." And then the same with Will. With it, Will, as we said before, first time I rung him because I said to Alex has mentioned that you're interested. He went, "Can I ring you back later? I ain't got time at the moment." I just hung up, and I don't know why, but I liked it. I just like the little pricks just absolutely mugged me right off there. He's still doing it today. So But it's golden, but it works. And then there's the thing, you just got, try and take people for what they are.
I think the recruitment process is just very unnatural. And look, if you look at success rates with recruitment, it obviously tells you that the current process that companies follow is broken, because there's so much more. You can't get enough out of someone in a 2-interview process with maybe an hour and a half hour or whatever. It's very unnatural. And all anyone's trying to do in that interview is say to you why they should employ. So they're going to sell themselves. They're not going to, unless you get someone really authentic and honest, which we do get across our desk sometimes. It's like they'll tell you, and you'll get through to them, and you'll be able to say, look, we're not looking for perfection here.
Yeah.
We're looking for someone that can grow and develop with us and has got the raw skills that we can develop.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of a...
Where is the construction world going wrong in terms of this recruitment thing from your end? Can you see anything in terms of the shortage in labour? I only say this because 5 or 6 lads I know can't get work at the moment. And then you go online and then they're all good guys, or they're just in between. I think it's the time of year. It's a bit tricky this time of year.
Yeah.
But in my head, it's just like, it don't add up with the fact that these jobs I'll be crying out for more guys, girls, whatever. We're crying out for people. I'm like, well, hang on a second. Where is the hiccup going here?
And when you're saying about recruitment wise, are you talking about, because that is it like on the tools side of stuff, or is it
labour shortages? I think the labour shortage side of it, from what you can hear, we don't.
Well, they shot themselves in the foot, didn't they, with the whole regardless of what your viewpoint on was Brexit in or out.
Yeah,
we've obviously
definitely
we had an industry, and not just construction, healthcare, and all these other things that rely on immigration, and so a lot of them went. There was a lot still here as well, but so there's that. But let's be fair about it. Why does someone come out of school now and go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and get a job, which is going to be really hard, really manual. I'm going to get fucking freezing in the winter. I'm going to get boiling in the summer, right? And no one sees it as a proper vocation. They see me as the thick person that has to go into a job because I couldn't get another job.
Yeah.
And it's like, which we all know is not true, but that's how it's viewed. And it's like, or I could go and work in a corporate, nice office that's got that really looks after my well-being, that gives me free breakfast, that gives me free lunch, right? Where it's nice and warm, and I'm going to be around loads of people in an office environment. Then I can sort of work my hours, and and it's a bit more consistent than the volatility where I go from one site to another.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on. I mean, I've got to be honest. Like, if the question comes, do I want my son Harry or my girl Freya or Daniela to go into construction? No.
Yeah, I'll be
the answer's no.
As well. I've done November, December on site. Last push of the year. Had a few jobs come in on the groundwork side, and I was out. Love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But there was many a day, especially that time of year, November, December, my alarm was going for 4:30, and I was just going, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
And I've been saying to myself, and that's coming from me, who loves this industry, loves my job, loves the passion, but that motivation, fucking hell.
Yeah.
But maybe that's because I'm getting a bit involved with this stuff now. I'm enjoying this a lot. But
But then it's like, so then if you get, like, if you look at all of the drawbacks of construction, and there's plenty of them, right? It's like, if you were giving career advice to your son, would you tell him to go into construction?
No.
No.
Yeah.
So then so then we've got an issue, because it's not like it's the highest paying job out there either, right? They don't invest anything in apprenticeships, right? So it's all very volatile.
They've got to be rebranded. We're coming out, every podcast we speak about, apprenticeship thing comes out. They need a rebrand, make some fucking new idea. We just got to ask us, can we go to a college somewhere and do a big day there? And I've said, no, I'm not interested. I don't believe in the college
system. There's not enough, but they don't buy. Every government that's come don't buy into it.
No.
So it's like, so we're not training people to have pride and be properly qualified in what they do. So it's like, I don't know. I'm a bit at a loss, to be honest. I don't have the answers, but all I know is that the industry needs a rebrand, and if we want to get the best talent into the market, and because then what you have is you get the people that go, yeah, I'll work in construction, but I'm going to be one of the people, the project managers or the cost consultant. Yeah. Or I'm going to do the more corporate Joe job, and then or I'm going to be a project manager. Well, why wouldn't you want to be a project manager in a fit out contractor? You go and get 180 grand a year. Yeah, I can see why you want to be one and all.
Yeah.
And it's like, so why are you going to want to? Why are you going to want to go and earn 30 grand a year doing a job that takes the 10-hour days and 2 hours travelling in between?
We're seeing that a lot as well. As soon as you become a good ground worker, you get promoted to be a supervisor or foreman or this. No one's actually good and gets kept in that one position.
No.
But because that's happening at each level, and then you end up with middle management who actually don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah,
but
and
but it looks smart. They get a smarter job, and you're winging it because you can go online. And, I was there. I took jobs where I was probably underqualified.
Yeah, and herein lies a big problem, right? And this isn't just construction, but you get, and in every walk of life, right? If you go into a job and you're good at your job, right? You get promoted, and typically you get promoted and paid more money to take on more shit. Taking on more shit generally requires taking on management duties, right? These people get management duties. So let's say, for instance, you're in a groundworks contractor and you're working on the tools, you're working on the ground, and then, okay, suddenly you're supervising and you're managing men or women, right? And then you're the manager. And then at no time, usually, do those people then go and get training in how to manage people, right? So suddenly you've got someone who's not evolved from actually being just from their current job, and then they've been responsible for looking after a gang of 10, right? And then it might be a gang, it might be gangs of, and you might have 10 gangs, and suddenly you're managing all of them people. And then we wonder why there's toxicity in the industry and the cultures, because these people haven't got the right tools. And they might not even be the right people for it, because they're just having to be promoted because they want more money. Why can't someone be really good at their job on the ground and have a progression path that gives them more money as they get,
sure.
The problem is we don't tend to reward based on skill sets in terms of, right, if you're a ground worker, you're not going to suddenly, and I don't know what the day rates are, right? But if you're paying someone 200 a day, and then there's someone who's actually better at their job and really good, but they're still doing fundamentally the same job, and they're on 225 and then 250, whatever. It doesn't work like that, because they're not taking on any more responsibilities. They're just better at their job. Yeah. But we soon know what happens when you get a shit one around,
Yeah, for sure. And again, we've had that before, and I had it before, so you're not old enough. He's got more experience. I'm like, well, you might have more experience, but he's doing
better.
Fuck all work. And he's having a fag every fucking 5 minutes. Exactly. Over there. But yeah, it's rewarded differently.
We don't, so then I just think the structures, and I think there are, let's be honest, there's some brilliant subcontractors out there who get it, and they invest in it, and they typically are the ones that they suddenly go from turning over 1 million, then there'll be 5, 15, 20. You don't get there from being a Burke.
With a lot of loyal staff.
And you build with it. But so it's not to say that, I'm saying this about construction. I'm tending to talk more about the sort of the smaller level. But there's quite a few, there's many fundamental issues that I see with the industry, and I just honestly don't know how they get fixed. That's the genuine truth. I don't know how there's the appetite for actually changing it.
Are we in a position, or we've built this industry where we're under too much stress and pressure now to take a step back and try and fix things?
And there's vested interest, right? So why, there's people in construction who are doing very well out of it. So why do they want to change it?
We've had this conversation, so it's probably a sticky subject, but I'm trying to stitch ourselves up too much. But that's the way the whole industry's led, isn't it? From the very top. People have vested interests within other companies.
Of course they do.
There's no independent. Should it be an independent group of people? Yeah, there's always going to be ways of leaning, people pulling out their arms, I'm sure. But should you have people running an industry when they have got vested interests in the way? Because if you change the rules too much,
it's everywhere, though, isn't it?
You stitch yourself.
How are you going to get? How would you literally untangle that?
Yeah.
Because
they're looking for the top of government, really. Look at the COVID stuff. That's how it all happened, isn't it?
They're not going to do it.
Vested interests elsewhere.
So this is it. So it's like it's all very well hypothesizing and saying the vision for it. Wouldn't it be great if we had a leadership council that had, was fully independent, didn't have people that were on the boards of tier ones and all this kind of stuff? Okay, I can understand it. I can understand the viewpoint, but equally, it's not realistic.
No.
So we then got to think about, and I don't know who. It's like, how do we actually make changes that can actually happen? That might not make the big change that we all want. But if government aren't going to lead it, which they're not, regardless of what they say, they're not going to lead it. Then they
can't lead themselves.
No, they can't lead themselves. So if there's not the appetite there, and I also understand elements of it, it's like, is it really going to get prominence when they've got all of these other things happening on multiple fronts? When they haven't got enough money to protect the country from, attack and all that. Are they going to really go and spend, they've got priorities that they need to look at, right? And construction, with respect, ain't ever going to get to the top. No. So it's like, how does the industry make itself better? And kind of do it itself. I honestly, God's honest truth, I do not know.
Yeah, we spoke to a few pals that said that it's very much the industry has been told to sort your own shit out.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. And then, but equally, then the thing I think to myself is it any different in other industries? That's what I'm trying, and I don't know enough about them. But is it any different in the healthcare industry? Is it any different in financial? Is it any? I don't know, because I don't know enough about them industries.
The healthcare stuff, that is a whole new level. Kettle of fish, isn't it? With the way even nurses working 12-hour shifts, I think is absolutely bonkers.
Yes,
to be honest.
Yeah, but it is. But then it's like, well, okay, if they don't do that, then you've got to get more staff. They ain't got enough staff in the first place.
As well,
it won't run.
We're going too much into all my medical records, but I remember sitting in the hospital for a long period of time, multiple times, and the nurse is coming in. And like the first time I clocked on, I was like, "You still here?" So you're on another shift. Then I'm still on the same shift. I said, "The 12-hour days." And I was like, and I was working the railway world at the time, and I was like, I know what I feel like 10 hours into a shift. And you're putting needles in me and stuff. And I'm like, that can't be, but crazy. And I was like, how can these people be relied on like that? And they're working overtime on that sometimes, aren't they? If they need it, you're carrying on longer. But it had, in terms of fatigue and livelihoods.
The thing I would do if there was literally a blank canvas and you said, right, there's the construction industry, it's, let's not say broken, let's just say the dynamics of it aren't where they need to be. If I would be like, right, bring someone in with no construction experience, right? A big picture thinker, right, that can spend the time to understand the dynamics of it, the different layers of it. And you'd probably need more than one person, but a figurehead of it, right? If they could actually push through what happens, because all that would happen is they'd get kiboshed. They'd just be like, no, we can't do that because of this, can't do that because of this. But if they actually genuinely could, you'd get somebody in who's got that big picture thinking, who's dynamic, creative, and say, right, blank canvas, how would we fix this? And if that would be the way to, like, if in an ideal, like, an ideal scenario would be to get someone like that in and like get people feeding into them from the SMEs, from the large contractors, from all of it, from industry, and then say, right, truly independent, give us your independent view. But it will just be another sort of white paper, that won't get listened to.
Because as soon as you bring the SMEs as well, it's such a vast industry.
It's huge.
It's so interlinked in a way. Well, not interlinked. What's the word? So, disconnected but connected. Yeah, all over it. I've part into all overlap each other. We find it a lot now. We go and meet new companies and speak to new people. And I walk into a room or a site. I go, fuck me, I didn't think of this as being part of the industry. So especially the fit out world has blown my mind over the last year. I'm not used to that world.
Yeah, that's one of our main markets. The fit out. It's just it's incredible. Some of the stuff that they do. I mean, and to be fair, it's quite a nice market.
Yeah,
right. It's nice.
People, they're clean-ish.
Oh God, I mean, some of them. We work for 3 or 4 of the big players in the market.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely industry to be in. To be fair, I mean, it's fast paced. And it's brutal, cutthroat. Like but it's actually quite. I like that end of construction. We get involved at all ends, but the fit out market is a nice one for us.
Yeah. The industry, the part of it I'm at, as soon as there's a building or what looks like a building, we're gone. The groundworks, in the whole, or the railway or the highway stuff. It's just kind of, you don't see. No. You don't have clean boots.
No. I mean, I think the one area, and it's one area that we're starting to look at more as an avenue for the business in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, is the energy sector. I think there's huge opportunities there, but also huge opportunities because I think, if you take the construction industry as a whole, it's too big. You can't ever make any changes to it because it's just phenomenally big. But I think what you can do is you can start to look, if you start to segment it by sector. Yeah. So if you're like, okay, the sector is green energy, right? And it's like, right, the problem is the green energy sector at the moment, and we work in it. We don't work offshore, it's all onshore. And I want to work more in it. But it's kind of like all hidden and it's a bit cloak and dagger and there's no one really driving it. So but the world, the next 50 years is all going to be about energy dependency, right? Yep. We haven't got enough of it. The whole world runs on energy. That is it. It's everything. And that's where I'm starting to see, well, could you start looking at it via sector and say, okay, well, the construction sector in the green energy space, which has got flooding with money, right? So, well, can we start to, if it was the mental health side of stuff, it's like, okay, well, can we start to look at this sector and focus on this sector? Yeah. Rather than try and, change the world with some of these other sectors, which we know are never going to change their ways. And I'm not going to mention them because I would get in trouble. But there are certain sectors that will never get anywhere near it
No.
because they're not dynamic enough. The people at the top aren't interested in it because it will get in the way of what they want to do. But I think we've got a chance when you start looking at energy, or you start looking at data centers, or you start looking at those kind of sectors within construction. That's where I think you've got a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. So breaking it down.
I think breaking it down is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen otherwise.
Yeah. Well, fair play.
Mm.
Happy days. So the RIDDOR thing, going back on it, picking at you. So
Go
what can we do for the mental health stuff? With the RIDDOR, it was my head, just for the viewers, I suppose, or listeners, is kind of...
Remind me again your argument.
My argument was, how can it not be factored
Was or is?
in? Yeah, is very firmly is, actually.
Is.
I'll stick by that.
Good.
I won't be black and white.
No.
I'll be black and white, shall we say, not cloudy. My argument was, surely that suicide in the workplace is not considered.
No.
Suicide in or out of the workplace is not considered a work-related issue.
Yes.
However, we do openly admit that long hours, working away from home, weather conditions, stress in the job, all this is a factor to why someone may take their life.
Yes.
Based on that, how is it not considered a RIDDOR? Or as you've said right as well, it could be, but it seems like it's something else. But what would that something else be?
I think the biggest thing for me is that they, just onto that argument, is that, so RIDDOR is for, the reporting of injuries, diseases, dangerous occurrences at work, right?
Yeah.
So to then put all of that in place, you can't, I don't think you can ever truly link the causal factor to work, which is the problem. You can't, you can say it's a contributory factor.
Yep.
And in certain instances, you might be able to say, do you know what, they were getting bullied at work. There was this happening at work. It is directly related to it. And that would, I think, come out in the coroner's report. It was them kind of extenuating. Supposed to.
Yeah.
So there might be clear-cut cases where you could say, do you know what, on the balance of evidence, that is down to the workplace.
Yeah.
But I think other times it's like, okay, well, if someone takes their own life, it's like, you never know truly what's happened.
No.
Even if they've written a note, or they've,
we know it's if like Robin Williams, Gary Speed.
Yeah.
All this,
So you don't.
No one knew.
So you don't. It's so multi-layered, and I would say, and again, I'm not an expert in it, but I would say it's okay. If someone's at that stage, it's like work might have played a part, relationship might have played a part, past trauma might have played a part.
Yeah.
Even going down to genes and what you come onto this planet with that makes you have a higher propensity for it.
You know a lot about it. I've seen that in the past as well, and genetically.
Yeah, genetically, some people are predisposed to being more to have it. And then it's like, okay, well, nurture. My belief that I don't think gets put enough on is that in the construction industry, more people who come into the construction industry tend to be at a lower socioeconomic background. People in lower socioeconomic backgrounds are proven to take to have more attempts. Yeah. Right. So it's like, so there's all these different stuff. So I'm just like, I don't know how. I just see that it would just suddenly be all suicides get reported without it would just be incomplete data. So that's where I'm like, RIDDOR won't work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's always been my big thing with it. And I can't guarantee, that's wrong. I don't believe that the HSE will ever countenance it going as a RIDDOR. Yeah. So that then sort of leads me to go, well, actually, no. Do you know what I was about to say? And then I'm going to challenge myself. I was going to say, so then I don't see, if that's going to be the case, the viewpoint from the HSE, then there's no point trying to push that narrative but then nothing would ever change if that happens. Yeah. So I think what you're doing, the way I perceive it is that what you're striking on something that's right. You're banging the drum, which is like, we need to get data that allows us to show the causal factor between work and these incidents. Because how does construction have a 4 times higher? I think it's 4 times higher. Correct me if I'm wrong.
4 times,
about 4 times higher, and there has to be a reason for that, which I don't think anyone's. We've all got little snippets like, well, it's people working away from home, stress, this, but no one's can nail it, and I don't think you'll ever will now.
No,
to be fair. Vast. So then I'm like, well, what could be that? What could be that? I suppose the question I'm going to ask you is, what's your end game? What are you trying to achieve from having it reported on RIDDOR? You want the stat? Is that what it is?
No, mine's not even. It has to be RIDDOR. Mine's. It's got to be something's got to be built into legislation in a way for this to be overseen, or for something to change, for companies to then have known we need to pay more attention to this subject, otherwise we will find ourselves liable. Then I feel they will then go out and about beyond what they are now to ensure that they're doing more for their staff.
So you're looking for there to be some legislation, which links into that, so that there can be teeth that come into it if it's proven the company, and it was to do with the company, it was to do with poor work, toxic workplace, whatever, that the company can be prosecuted. Is that basically it?
Yeah, so it ultimately mean the company are liable to prosecution if they don't follow this legislation, whatever this legislation is or looks like. But then it'd be, how do you defend yourself or evidence that you are implementing certain things to cover yourself? Then it's down to the company to, and as they are now, a lot of companies are, with a CR, or whatever you called it, or the responsibilities we all have. Yeah. It's very much like, well, as a company, to defend yourself, you've got to literally prove or show evidence that you have put ways and means to support your staff in place. And if you can show you've got X amount of things in place that you've already done, then as a company, you are safe. But then there's so much you can't do. So I get that.
This is the bit, and I know I'm going around the houses.
No, that's
right?
cool.
But there is legislation, right? So there's the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regs, 1999, which says about risk assessment, significant hazards, of which stress in the workplace is a significant hazard. Now, no one, sorry, I've got to keep saying, stop giving the broad brush. A lot of it's just surface level, right? Yeah. But so there is a requirement to do stress risk assessments, right? Now, there's an argument to say how well they're done, or if they're done at all. But then there's the Health and Safety at Work Act, which has a duty of care for your employees. So that the legislation's there. The problem is it's not applied. Yeah. But then my argument to this would be, okay, so let's say, for instance, we've got I'm just going to say, I'm going to stop picking on the tier ones and just say, right, a tier 3 contractor, turn over 50 million a year. They've got 10 projects on at any one time. They've got a workforce of 50 people. Mm-hmm. Let's say, for instance, they do stress risk assessments. They've got a health and safety policy. They've got leadership training for their workforce to train them about, how to have conversations with people. So let's say they're quite forward thinking. Mm-hmm. They do mental health first aiders and they do lots of various different things, right? So, because health and safety is about, so usually, so far as is reasonably practicable, which is you weigh up the risk and the cost, and you come up with a solution. So let's say they've done that, and in their risk assessment of how they ensure the health, safety, and well-being of their employees, they're doing all these different measures, right? And then let's say a project manager takes their own life because the work was stressful. Let's say a causal factor was they were working really long hours. Yeah. They got a bit of heat because the project was delayed and there was LADs on the project. And they were getting 20 grand a week all the time. They didn't have the project done for Mr. and Mrs. Blogs. Yeah. Really high end. Right. So let's say, so this is where I come into it. And I'm like, okay, so the company could have done everything that was reasonably practicable for them to show to do that. And that instance still happened. Right. So then what would be, because that wouldn't lead to a prosecution. Yeah. Or is your thing, should it lead to a prosecution? Because
no, not if the company's gone out and about and they can evidence that. That's my thing. Are you doing enough to support the staff? Not are you doing everything you can, because there are going to be ones that obviously slip through the net. Yeah. But are there systems in place to support, not so much support people, so you as a company can proudly sit there and go, we do enough and we're following
So these. I genuinely believe, and this is probably where the crux of the argument comes in, I genuinely believe the legislation's there.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I know it's there.
Yeah.
What's not there is the policing of it. Or so the problem is, so I don't see that the RIDDOR, which is a regulation in and of itself, I don't think that gets you what you want. Yeah. I think the problem, you've got the legislation, you've got the companies that some are doing well, some are not doing so well, some don't pay any service, they don't do anything at all. Yeah. But the problem is that doesn't get policed. Yeah. Right. So health and safety, more often than not, the safety element in health and safety gets looked at because you can easily identify if there's a missing barrier or the scaffold's missing, or the health has always been the poor relation because it's not seen. You can't see what's inside someone's head. You can't see asbestosis because it doesn't come up for 25, 30 years because of the latency period. Or carpal tunnel syndrome doesn't present itself for another 20 years. If you've been subjected to hand-arm vibration and all that kind of stuff. So it's always been harder to do. And I think mental health is just another thing, like an even bigger subject, which people are scared of. They're scared about doing the wrong thing, like either going overboard or not doing enough. And then I think the big problem is that we can't, and this is why I don't think it gets the teeth in the working world, is because I don't think anyone can really ever genuinely make the link, 100% direct causal link to the work. So they can always wriggle out of it and say they were having personal problems. Yeah, they lost, they lost access to their children, or they were going through a divorce. And that's all huge.
We know it's all huge.
So it's like and then it gets into the realms of, okay, well, what do you attribute to what this issue? Like, let's say they had an attempt on their life or whatever. It's like, okay, well, what percentage of that was down to personal stuff? Yeah. And what was down to the work? You'll never be able to prove it. No. Like, never. So then that's why I think there's this inertia in the industry because, and I don't necessarily think it's because I think there's elements of it, which is some people don't care. But I genuinely have got more hope for the human race, that I do genuinely think people do care, a lot of people, but they don't know what to do with it. And they're worried, they're like, well, where does the buck stop? Where's the line? And I think that's also in there. I've worked, I've got acquaintances in the large tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, and everything in between. And I know there's some fucking brilliant people in those big, large organisations wanting to do really well. Yeah. I also know there's some people in there who aren't as interested in it. Yep. And maybe say, okay, well, that's not my job. That can delegate.
And it doesn't make them bad, good or bad, does it?
No. But it's just everyone's got their own drivers, and there's going to be there's in all walks of life. There's people who care more for people, and there's people who are a bit more out for themselves. So I know that's a very long-winded way of saying
no, I love it.
But
no, it's good.
I don't think genuinely that RIDDOR is the way to it.
The idea was just,
that's it. And that's just my view. And I understand and appreciate your view and others' views. But I think that if it's truly about driving down the numbers, which it has to be, but not just about the final number, which is the suicides.
It's always
what about all the stuff before that, which is the people, which, you just got to see the drag on industry that's costing.
I tell you, look at people's CSCS cards from 5 years ago and look at them today. Even mine, so I went, fucking hell, Steve. I know that's just life in general, but there's a lot of people there just think.
And there's so many other, I just think there's so many other factors in the whole construction bucket, which can lead to higher numbers, higher instances of the situation. Don't for 1 minute have all the answers, but I just think that we're living in a society. I genuinely don't know, and this is the God's honest truth. I don't know that. I think we could pour hundreds of millions into it, right? Yeah. Just like we said about the NHS earlier. I actually don't know if that number's going to go down, and I know that sounds not very good.
Well, we probably ain't far off that now. The money was got into it 10 years, isn't it?
So
where is it now?
I don't think, and I mean, what do you think? Because I think the awareness side of stuff in the industry is actually majorly improved. I think the awareness has. I'm not saying all action. Yeah. Right. But the number keeps going up and up. Yeah. My prediction, and I would love to be wrong on this, but my prediction is if we look at this over the next 5 years, I think the number's going to keep going up and up, regardless of the good work that we do.
Getting harder.
It's getting harder. It's certainly not going to release in the next 5 years in terms of sort of financial pressures, polarization, social media and everyone's addiction to it.
Trump.
all of that mix. So I genuinely hope I'm wrong, and that's not to say we don't stop trying and stop doing stuff, because I think you can have a big impact at the not at the suicide rate necessarily, but at the supporting the people who are going through the tough times that don't go to that level. But I genuinely think that there's lots of work to be done, but I don't necessarily think it's as easy as punching money into it, getting that output. I wish it was, but I just don't see it. But ultimately, the HSE have got to see it as an area to focus on. but I don't think they will, because I don't think they know how to, because I don't think again, the causal factor, I think, is always going to get in the way.
They had it with the Ofsted report, as we mentioned before, with Ruth Perry, that they took her own life.
Yeah,
and from what I'm hearing now, speaking to a couple of friends, family friends over Christmas, talking about work over Christmas time, shouldn't be done, but their teachers, and they've said there's actually the HSC not so much have changed their ways about it, but they've put the pressure onto Ofsted report to say, sort this out yourselves. This is in-house between you and your members or the schools. Yeah. So the pressure's been put on Ofsted to literally say, you need to sort this out. This isn't us as HSC.
I think I heard
this goes with the RIDDOR thing, and this is where my idea started thinking about it. And that was, a little bit like that to Ofsted. And from what I'm hearing from a few different angles, if construction's looking the same in terms of the HSC saying, you need to sort this out, this is your industry, sort it out. But 2025, we'll see, I suppose.
They've got to support it. And I get the industry, we need to you need to lead it yourself. They're the regulator, they're there to police it, but they need to take some accountability of it as well.
My fear is with RAMs as well, even a risk assessment method statement, you're going to put on there when you categorise things, like numbering things up. Yeah. You're looking at, okay, this guy's going to use a circular saw today. What's the worst? This. Worst case scenario, takes his hand off. That could lead to it. Okay. But if we're going to then say, let's put suicide into a risk assessment, if we factor in the fact that the stress of the workplace is going to cause surely stress, sorry, not even suicide into the risk assessment, stress. Yeah. Worst case scenario, that person who stresses, he's going to take his own life. And then my head was like, well, if he does go and take his own life, this RAMS gets flown out because it's a personal issue. So it's just like, where do we? That is massively great. I get that. I'm just me trying.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You'd look at it, and if I was doing a stress risk assessment for a contractor, you'd be looking at, okay, what in that work could lead to that, like significant hazard? What could lead to it? So yeah, it's multi-layered. It's not easily solvable, but yeah, I think ultimately, this is what I've always said: health and safety legislation is actually good. Yeah. Right. It's the application of the regulations. Yep. People either over-engineering it, under-engineering it, and everything in between, interpreting things differently. Yep. That's where the problem lies. In 2010, David Cameron apparently was going to put a torch paper to health and safety red tape. They had a report. I can't remember who it was. They did a report and found that it was largely fit for purpose. There was 2 or 3 things that needed to be changed, and that was it. Yeah. And so I think it's there. It's having somebody who's going to take ownership of it and use it. So, I mean, the thing that would really change the game is if there was a piece of case law whereby it could get proved that someone has taken their life as a direct consequence of work activities. And if then there was somebody that wanted to take that to they got a good lawyer behind them and they went, that would change the game. That literally would change
Grenfell Tower. Grenfell Tower was probably that in that world. That was a massive bang. Yeah. And then it changed.
That would change it. But it would need, but there would be quite hard to get that. It would be quite hard to get that through, is my sense, because that, again, I keep going back to it, the causal factor. That would be, you get a good, I think they're called KCs now, a good KC behind you. They would be all over that like a rash. They'd like, how would you prove that this is as a result of the work? That links
in with that, you say the law, what's already there. We've got to do some homework on it.
Yeah, because even if someone wrote in the note, this was a direct consequence of Johnny abusing me at work and I'm stressed and this has caused me to do this, they would turn around and go, that person wasn't of the mind at that time that they were writing that note. They could have wrote whatever they wanted, and they would pick it apart. Guarantee you, it probably wouldn't even get to that point.
Interesting times.
I really would like to. I'd love to see something come to there to be a case where it would actually get proven.
Yeah, and it's almost that, isn't it? Something's got to give a little bit to find a way through, isn't it?
I think so.
To try and do it, but what would that be? Time will tell. But
time will tell.
Havio, very much out there in the marketing world now, aren't you? Can you put yourselves out there?
We're trying, mate. We're trying. And our whole thing is, we don't hunt business. It's about people generally in health and safety. It's about being in the right place at the right time. And for someone at the moment, when they go, do you know what? I need a health and safety person, for someone to go, Havio. That's it. That's literally it. That's why we sort of invest in it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All your support from the early days as well. Yeah, we've got plenty to come this year. I'm sure it's going to be a good one. And we're going to get on some of your marketing, so I'm going to come into the office and crash it.
Let's do it. Jack, let's do it.
Pleasure,
pal.
Mate.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for your time.
Take care.
Pushty. Long enough? It's an hour and 15?
1 hour Cards 16.
Bloody hell. Is it that long?
So it goes on, doesn't it?
Good.
See? Health and safety is interesting.